Martha DeGrasse here for AGL, and I'm joined now by Dagan Kasavana. He is founder and CEO of Phoenix Tower International. Dagan, thanks a lot for your time today.
Thanks, Martha, for having me.
Well, it's been a crazy year, and I think everybody would like to hear your key takeaways from 2020, both for your company and the tower industry overall.
Well, I think for the tower industry overall, I think everyone has seen the importance of wireless connectivity, not only for communication on cell phones, for education, for telemedicine, for commerce across the world. It is so important for the entire world to be connected. And one of the reasons that there is still lifeblood in the economy, despite everybody, including myself, working from home, is thanks to that connectivity. And so we're incredibly humbled to be in an industry that is in such demand, but also that comes with significant responsibility that we also don't take lightly here at PTI. And as an industry as a whole, I also think that the industry continues to mature. I think at PTI, we always focus on giving back to the communities we do business in. It has never been more important than this year. I was really happy to see some of the other players in the industry focus on being carbon neutral and decreasing their carbon footprint. That is also something that we are working to do as well, and I hope to be on a carbon neutral basis in 2021. And we want to continue to grow our charitable works across the world, because in addition to providing great connectivity, we want to make sure we're giving back. The growth as we emerge from COVID-19 will be uneven. And I think there'll be certain markets that'll do better than others, and certain people that'll do better than others. And we want to make sure we're continuing to give back. That's incredibly important. I think we also want to service our customers, and I think in particular the tower companies and wireless infrastructure providers have become more important than ever to the wireless operators in this climate. And during the year, we worked with them hand in hand to help them on their operating results, to help them on their coverage needs, to help them on alternatives to capital investments. And I think we really strengthened our partnerships quite a bit with some of our key customers. And my belief is that they will never forget how the tower companies responded in times of need, and that will lead to a lot of goodwill in the future for the entire industry.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about the outlook for next year. You mentioned a somewhat uneven recovery. Let's talk about the good news first. Where do you think things will start to look better?
Well, I think the good news is that there is significant demand for the wireless network. Certainly, we've seen it in fixed and I think the fixed line networks, and I think also we've seen it on the tower side as well. So I think as people start to travel more, as people start to go on vacation more, those aspects of hotel DAS, of enterprise distributed antenna solutions, of tower locations that are located in more populous tourist hubs, those will continue to kind of reemerge in a way that'll be very helpful. I think when it comes to residential suburban sites, I think the traffic will continue to be strong even as we emerge. And the example I give is everybody's working on Teams, on Zoom now. We will continue to work on Teams and Zoom, but people may be connecting from their phones a lot more than they ever have because they're on the road a lot more and they're traveling. That will lead to significant data on the tower sites themselves and data traffic that should lead to some real meaningful additions in terms of equipment on the tower sites, and ultimately lead to lease up, which I think is fantastic. I also feel like given the COVID-19 situation, I think for the markets we do business in, we're in 15 countries right now. It's more important than ever to roll out 5G, to be ahead of the spectrum auctions, to be ahead of the site deployments, to get towers built quicker. Those are all good signs for the industry, to have the government supporting the growth that we're trying to implement and that our customers are trying to implement. And I think a combination of those factors will be really, really great for the industry going forward.
So out of the 15 countries where you do business, is the US the furthest along with 5G or another country?
It's a great question, and I think, yes, the US is the furthest along with 5G. I think you see Europe right behind them, and you actually see some markets in Latin America, some of the larger markets in Latin America also right behind them. When you think about the Caribbean, when you think about some of the Central American markets, in general, they are behind. In many cases, they haven't even had 5G spectrum auctions. That's obviously a fantastic opportunity in the future for us as a wireless infrastructure provider. But I think they also need to accelerate the build outs. And I think that the governments see that now, and they see that demand for connectivity, not only in good times, but in bad times. And I think that's really important. One example is all of the education from home. It was really challenging to have your children educated across the world if you don't have good connectivity in your house. And so those are just some examples. I think also the commerce for businesses that are doing business from home. These are examples of ways that governments realize we need to make sure our entire population has connectivity. And certainly in the United States, you hear it from the Biden administration, you heard it from the Trump administration. Ensuring that we have rural connectivity is so important for us to compete in the future. And you see that across the world right now.
Do you expect a lot more business from rural carriers and even maybe WISPs during the year ahead?
We do. That's been an area of focus. And again, not only in the United States, but all of our other markets, we're doing a lot more business with some of those smaller players, the regional players, as well as the IoT players, and other technologies are emerging that are really exciting for us to be deploying on our tower sites above and beyond the traditional MNOs that we normally do business with.
All right, good. Well, earlier you mentioned that some areas might be a little slower to come back. Where would you see that being the case?
Well, I think in the markets that are more tourism centric, certainly they'll be slower to rebound. I think obviously tourism has been deflated. I think in some of the markets, the macroeconomic picture is more challenging than others. I think COVID has hit some of these markets to the extent that the sovereign situation in some of these markets was difficult and challenging going into COVID. It's probably worsened. And so I think in some parts, some of the markets that we do business in, it will be a longer recovery. It won't be a recovery immediately. It'll take 2 or 3 years for them to recover. That doesn't mean that the wireless industry will be directly impacted. We're in a very resilient industry, as you know, but it does mean that in terms of getting to kind of the same CapEx spend that we saw 2 or 3 years ago, it might take a couple of years to emerge.
And how do you think that the current spectrum auction may or may not weigh on carrier spending as we head into 2021?
I think in terms of the current spectrum auction, it'll only help. I mean, I think obviously they're going to make massive investments on the spectrum themselves, but then they have massive build out needs that they need to do right after that. And so I see it only helping. And in general, you're always looking to pair that upcoming spectrum auction, which then is followed by build outs, which then is followed by the next spectrum auction. So it's good to see both. And I think we're seeing both right now as an industry, certainly in the US.
Good to hear. All right. Dagan Kasavana, founder and CEO of Phoenix Tower International. Thank you very much. Stay safe and have a good holiday.
Martha, thank you so much. You too.